Hello, my name is Phil Easter, historian and writer from Baltimore, Maryland, also known as the Amazing Memory Man. Recording tonight on Monday, July 7th, 2025. This is story number 76 on my YouTube channel, which is Phil Easter, the Amazing Memory Man. First of all, tonight I would just like to mention briefly that today, July 7th, is the 85th birthday of former Beatle Ringo Starr. Ringo Starr was born on July 7th, 1940 in Liverpool, England. So he's 85 today. And how wonderful the group the Beatles was. So many people remember, and then they went their individual ways, and Ringo and Paul are both still living in their 80s. And that's wonderful. So happy 85th birthday to Ringo Starr, whose real name, by the way, was Richard Starkey. Richard Starkey was his real name. The other three Beatles used their real names: John Lennon, George Harrison, and Paul McCartney. But in any event, Richard calls himself Ringo. Happy 85th birthday. This evening we're going to look forward to the year 2026, a preview of special events, celebrations, anniversaries, and also a major sports event that will come to North America. I do say North America and not just the United States, because in 1994, the United States hosted the World Cup of Soccer, as many countries call it football, of course. But we hosted the World Cup in 1994. Several cities in the United States did, but the final at the Rose Bowl in Los Angeles area. But this time, it's not just cities in the United States, but also two cities in Canada, Vancouver and Toronto, and several cities in Mexico, including, of course, the capital, Mexico City. So somewhere around 15 or 16 cities next year throughout all of North America will host World Cup soccer games. And this time the tournament will include 48 nations, the most ever. In all the World Cups before, for a number of years we had 32 countries. Going back further, there were 24 for several World Cups. Originally, there were just 16 countries. Slight correction. The very first World Cup in 1930, almost 100 years ago, only 13 countries took part. Then between 1934 and about 1978, 16 nations took part. Then the 80s, they added a few more for 24. For many years, there were 32, which I think was a very good number. I'm a little concerned about as many as 48 countries, because I wonder about the quality of the play. You'll have some countries qualifying in the regional tournaments within their own continental areas, but once you go against the best of the world, you'll have some one-sided games, I bet, in the first round. But in any event, there will be 48 countries taking part, and the final will be in the New York City area, a place called the Meadowlands, but that's actually in New Jersey, technically speaking. It's where the New York Giants and New York Jets NFL football teams play their home games, the Meadowlands in New Jersey, and I believe that's where the final will be on July 19th. The opening game will be in Mexico City on June 11th, so the tournament will last about 5 weeks or so, more than a month. The first time it ever will go more than 1 month, but as many as 48 countries taking part, and that's why. So we look forward to the World Cup in 2026. But of course, it's the same year that our wonderful country, the United States of America, celebrates 250 years. The Declaration of Independence signed on July 4th, 1776 in Philadelphia. And next year will be 250 years. I remember the bicentennial celebrations in 1976, 49 years ago. And that was a grand time, and I was living in Boston for part of that year. I'd lived there a couple of years. I came back to Baltimore on July 1st and went over to Washington, D.C. on July 4th for a big celebration of music and fireworks. And then a very busy month for me, July of 1976. I went up to Montreal, Canada for the Olympic Games, where I stayed the whole time and met a number of gold medal champions, including Bruce Jenner, who won the gold medal in the decathlon, became a very famous athlete, got his name on the Wheatie boxes of his photograph. And then there were other events in the fall of 1976 I enjoyed, running the New York City Marathon on October 24th, 1976. And 2 weeks later, I ran the marathon in Washington, D.C. And 3 weeks after that, in Philadelphia on November 28th. It was quite a weekend in Philadelphia. On Saturday the 27th, I saw the annual Army-Navy football game, a great tradition in college sports, the Army-Navy football game. And the next day, Sunday the 28th, ran the Philadelphia Marathon. Thus, I ran and finished 4 marathons in 1 year, as I also ran the Boston Marathon back in April 19th that year, the 5th time I ran the famous Boston Marathon. So I was a pretty good runner back then, and that's how I celebrate the bicentennial year of the United States, taking part in those marathons and going up to Montreal for the Olympics and other activities, going to concerts, and it was very enjoyable. And I can't believe it's almost 50 years since then. Next year in 2026, another 50 years, and I'm looking forward so much to wonderful music concerts and other events, as well as the World Cup of Soccer, of course. I was only just a little disappointed that our national capital area, Washington, D.C. and Baltimore, were left out of a chance to host some of the games. The nearest city will be Philadelphia, 100 miles away. They will host some of the games. But also, here in Baltimore, 2 fine educational institutions, the Johns Hopkins University and Mount St. Joseph High School, will be celebrating 150 years. They both started in 1876, the year our country was 100 years old, in 1876. By the way, my maternal grandmother, her sister, we called her Aunt Maud, she was born in 1876, and would you believe, 100 years later, she was still living in 1976 at age 100. So she was half as old as the country at age 100. Isn't that something? And she actually lived 1 more year. She lived to be 101. So in 1976, around her birthday, she received a letter from President Ford, President Gerald Ford, from the White House, and that was very nice. I've been told if you know people turning 100, you can inform the White House, and they will send a letter or a card. That's about one thing all presidents agree on, despite all the other political differences. They usually like to send a person a birthday card for their 100th birthday. A very nice tradition. And so we have a number of events to look forward to. The country is turning 250 years. There's 2 wonderful educational institutions in Baltimore will be celebrating 150 years. And I've been associated some with Johns Hopkins. I used to teach a special course on both sports history and history of the Olympic Games for a subdivision called the Baltimore Free University back in the 1980s. And also, I was the subject of medical science research by 2 doctors at the Johns Hopkins University School of Medicine in 2016 and 2017 regarding my outstanding memory ability. And they did a study on me that was published in a medical journal at the end of 2017. So I'm very proud of that, to have contributed to medical science research as a single case study. I'm sure Hopkins will have many reasons to celebrate next year, the university, both and the medical school. And also, I went to Mount St. Joseph High School. I graduated in 1970, 55 years ago. So later this year, we're going to have a 55-year class reunion, because 5 years ago in 2020, we could not have a 50-year reunion because of the pandemic. So we'll have our own reunion later this year, and then next year, I'm sure many events the school will celebrate of 150 years after it was founded in 1876. Also, I'd be remiss if I did not point out that there will be a 25-year anniversary, of course, of a very sad and tragic event, September 11th, 2001, the terrible, tragic terrorist attack on the United States. Will be 25 years next year in 2026. That's hard to believe in a way, but yes, it will be 25 years next year. But we will have many very nice reason to celebrate the year, these anniversaries I mentioned, and others too. I'm sure in many other states there'll be certain anniversaries of local institutions to celebrate. But mainly, the United States will be 250 years old, and what a time it should be on July 4th, 2026. I'm sure there'll be greater fireworks in many cities than ever before. We look forward to 2026, America's 250th celebration, and the FIFA World Cup coming to the United States, Canada, and Mexico. This is Phil Easter, the amazing memory man. We will see you next time for story number 77, another story on another subject. Thank you and good evening.